Hey
Hi.
guys, we just came out of Won't You Be My Neighbor, and we've been crying for what, 2 hours or however long it was.
Non-stop crying.
And the draft house had like a bowl of Kleenexes for
Yeah.
everybody as you walk in because it's a cry movie. It's
It's absolutely a cry movie.
it's the documentary about Mr. Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of goes through his whole like professional career, but it starts out, they start talking about when he got out of college, he was going to be a minister or
Right,
something.
he was ordained.
How
he was
that
gonna
works,
go
but
for schooling. Right?
and he decided to start doing TV first because he didn't like what was on TV for kids at the time, and this was back in the 50s, I guess. Or 60s?
Yeah, I think his first show with Mr. Rogers was
early
1967.
67, okay.
Yeah.
It was already kind of late 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes through all the different issues that he talked about and why and the feelings and just everything. I mean, all the way to where he passes on, and
it was just
everything.
It was such a good documentary.
Yeah, it was so good.
So good. And they talked to some of the actors from the show who were on the show, and I'm still crying, sorry guys.
People that he had as guests on the show, and
which I wish they had brought on Lady
which one?
Girl? I forget her name. The girl.
I don't want to say the wrong one, so I'm not going to say
the female.
the young woman.
Female woman.
Lady,
yeah.
I want to say Lady Elaine.
Who was
Is
in
that
the
totally
show.
wrong?
No,
Lady
I think that's
Elaine.
wrong. I think that might be the.
Oh, Lady Elaine Fairchild is the main one.
Yeah, I think that's the main one.
So then there's Lady. It's Lady something. But I haven't watched it in a while. But
I've been watching it all week in preparation.
She's been watching it all week. Yeah. But yeah, we grew up watching it.
I was watching it all the time as a kid. All the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
What were some of the other shows you watched, of that kind of?
That kind?
Yeah.
Well, Sesame Street.
Sesame Street, of course, for me, that was the heyday of Sesame Street. When I was a kid.
I would watch that stuff, and then I would also watch a lot of, at the time, Disney was showing.
Nickelodeon, stuff like that? Or?
Yeah, Eureka's Castle, but
All
that's,
that stuff.
different.
But it was
Dumbo's
that time period
Circus
for you.
And
a lot of
Pooh's
stuff
Corner.
that still kind of and you take something like Pooh's Corner, you can really imagine the Mr. Rogers influence.
Right.
Whereas when I was a kid, most of it was they were showing Transformers and all this violent cartoons that we grew up with. And
Under the Umbrella Tree was a big
yeah.
one of mine, but
When I was a kid, it was just pretty much Rogers and Sesame Street for the more moral and benign stuff. And
but I love watching
David and
Mr.
Goliath
Rogers
and
even
that.
now,
Yeah.
I will watch him even now. He's very relaxing.
It's a relaxing thing to watch.
And so interesting because I had forgotten about how he'll take you through how they make certain things.
Yeah, I remember that.
How certain places run. I think we were watching how they bottle milk the other day or something. It was just really interesting. And
did you like
things you don't think about
that stuff more than I liked that stuff more than I did the make-believe land, even though I'm very much into make-believe stuff.
Oh yeah,
I wasn't a huge fan. For me, I was not as into
as a kid,
the land of make-believe.
I think I loved the land of make-believe.
Honestly,
a lot.
I don't know as a kid which one I preferred, but I think back on it and I feel like I liked the real stuff more.
I still liked the real stuff more, but I liked the make-believe as well, but sometimes I'll skip the land of make-believe now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because I love watching him interact with people, and I don't know. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, after
I love
seeing
the
this
trolley,
documentary,
though. I love the trolley.
Oh yeah, I love the trolley. After seeing this documentary, I have a new appreciation for the land of make-believe.
Oh yeah, because they talk about serious stuff,
and they go into for example, the little tiger is Mr. Rogers. It's like as a child.
Yeah.
Or some people say the true Mr. Rogers. He was that tiger. And in this film, they have transitional sequences, animated scenes of the little tiger
I think
as
there's
Mr.
a new
Rogers.
children's show about the tiger.
Oh, is there?
I think so.
Wow.
I think it's been out for a few years because
Interesting.
I was watching one of those.
Daniel, I think is the name of the
Daniel the Tiger, yeah. I was watching one of those, I forget what it's called, but it's like one of those channels on YouTube. Where they show children things, a reaction channel.
Reaction channels.
And they had the parents sitting with their children and reacting to Mr. Rogers.
Oh, cool.
Parents who grew up watching Mr. Rogers, showing their kids Mr. Rogers, and I mean they loved it. They all appreciated him and stuff. But I kept seeing the parents say, "Do you know who that is? That's Daniel the Tiger." And the kids were like, "Oh my gosh!" So there must be some kind of like
CGI animated show about or something.
I think there is.
Probably Flash animation or something, yeah.
And I'm sorry, guys, if we're totally out of the loop with this, because I think we are.
I'm
really
usually not, but with the preschool shows, I can be out
I
of
think
the
there
loop.
is a preschool Daniel the Tiger, which is really interesting that they did that.
There are so many preschool shows these days. There didn't used to be.
Yeah.
There used to be, Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, and there was a time when that was practically it for like the really preschool stuff.
I mean, and I can't really say anything because I don't watch the current preschool shows, but I feel like visually it seems a little more dumbed down these days, and I wish they wouldn't do that.
I think it's because it's all like Flash animation.
Maybe.
It all looks the same,
I really liked that gritty, realistic look of
Puppets
Mr. Rogers and
it's just
Sesame
a
Street
human
and
person.
stuff. Yeah, I really enjoyed that more. But I don't know. They hit on a lot of good subjects in the documentary, and it was really nice seeing some footage that we've never seen before.
Oh yeah, all the behind the scenes footage.
Mm-hmm.
They showed that they did episodes like about Robert Kennedy's assassination.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
They did episodes of Mr. Rogers on stuff like that, on racial stuff, just everything. It was amazing. About maniacal leaders building walls back in like the 60s.
That was crazy.
It was so interesting, guys. And they took on all these questions that people have had about Mr. Rogers. The impression you get after this, and you should definitely see it for yourself, is that he was the guy. That was him.
That was him.
He was exactly
Which
what
I
you see.
I totally believe. I don't know why people are questioning that.
People are questioning it because we are constantly finding out people are not what we thought they were, especially our heroes, our childhood heroes. Going by this documentary, apparently, totally, that was Mr. Rogers. That was him 24 hours a day, And it was interesting. He did have his, like, things that made him angry and things like that. But he handled them differently and calmly. But it was, what kind of things? It was like, not treating kids with respect and things like that. Those are the things that would really upset him, It was really interesting.
Not only respect, but with intelligence.
That's what I mean. Yeah, respecting their intelligence and things like that, and caring about them, and it was about love and all this. It was really, really neat, and it was so inspiring, and it
almost ended on a sad note, which was really sad. It's just like basically towards the end of his life, he spoilers, towards the end of his life, he had,
it was like 9/11.
9/11 had just happened, and so he was just getting really he stopped his show, and he was just getting really depressed because he wasn't doing the show anymore, and then 9/11 happened, and he was just like, this is never ending, we're never gonna. He was getting really, upset. That like the world is never going to change. That you're always going to be fighting evil, is what they said, which is true. But
I think they were kind of saying that he sort of like was embracing that idea that it's just that's what you're here to do.
Yeah,
is to always be trying to fix the world.
Right.
Maintaining it. Keeping it going. By like fixing it anywhere you can, any way you can. It was really
It's amazing how many people's lives he touched, and the children and everything.
And you see a lot of that. It was so good.
And like the policeman on the show, and I don't even remember his name, but apparently he became like he considered Mr. Rogers his father, basically. Yeah. But it was just really good. So I would suggest you go see it. I know this is a short video because it's not.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot to say because it's a documentary about a person's life.
Yeah.
It was a very good one. If you've ever had any questions about Mr. Rogers, if you ever watched Mr. Rogers, if you're curious in any way, you should watch this movie. It's a beautiful movie. It's just it was amazing.
And if you don't go to the draft house, make sure you bring tissues with you.
Bring tissues because they might not have them.
The draft house supplies them, but
you're gonna cry a lot probably, unless you're just not inclined to. But it was so good. Amazing person.
Oh yeah.
They showed clips with Coco the gorilla, which I had just been watching those on YouTube today because Coco just passed away, and where she's taking off his shoes.
Amazing.
Apparently that was like her favorite show, Mr. Rogers. Yeah, that's why she was taking his shoes off.
Oh my god.
Because that's what he does on the show.
Cute.
It was amazing.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's so calming. I want to go watch him now.
Yeah.
He's so calming. And just like, I don't know.
Did you get any negative stuff about him? From seeing all the truth about him?
No, I'm just angry at some people who tried to like think of him negatively at the end. They were saying that he had put the thought in
like
the youth,
the whole millennial thing,
in like
of being entitled and feeling like everybody's special, and so now everybody feels entitled and everything. But and he tried to kind of explain what he meant by that.
Yeah, the last commencement speech he ever gave, he was kind of giving his rebuttal to that and saying that all that it meant was that you never have to do. All that he meant by that you were special, just as you are, is that you never have to do anything incredible or to be
just
loved.
To be loved.
Yeah,
that you're already worthy of being loved, and yeah.
I know.
I was gonna say, so the only thing I could say even slightly negative about Mr. Rogers after seeing this is I would hate to watch TV with him because he really hated all those cartoons we love that we grew up with. You know how some people are like,
Okay, so it's like you guys know.
But I get why he's where he's coming from.
But he never even when people were getting at that in interviews with him, he wouldn't really comment. He would just smile and like you knew he didn't like that kind of stuff, but he didn't go on about it. You know what I mean? He was like whatever. But you know the movie Hot Fuzz. So he's kind of like that guy in that he can't switch off. You know what I mean? Like that's what I get a little bit of a vibe from him, is that like he can't kind of maybe just relax. I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
no. Well, he is. Well, no, I don't get that. But I mean, I think I know kind of what you're saying. I think he has his way of looking at things, and
well, I mean,
it's hard to put into words. But
I get how he feels, because I'm not super into like the whole I don't want to say dumb kids shows, but like the really like throwing goop on each other and like stuff.
Slapstick
I've never been
stuff.
into that. Even when I was a kid, I did not watch that stuff because I didn't understand.
I did. I love Three Stooges and things like that.
I didn't understand why those kids were doing that. I was like, why are they doing that?
Nickelodeon getting slimed and things like that?
I never understood that.
It's just for there's an element of fun to it, and like I was saying, I feel like he misses that one element of fun, that there is fun in throwing a pie at somebody, or getting a pie in your face.
Right.
It's fun. It's just like silly and fun. And I'd say if there's anything that's lacking from Mr. Rogers, it's that particular brand of
But
fun
I think
that he might have missed out on.
I think that he wasn't really maybe saying that that's not fun. I think maybe what he was saying is that the
everything was like
all the television at the time, and even now, I guess, I don't know, all the television for children at the time was overly saturated with this slapstick stuff.
Well,
and he was like, we need to bring in some intelligent stuff for the kids.
Where I feel like he got more of an I got more of an angry vibe from him, though, was like things like when they were talking about Superman. When I was a kid, there were kids jumping out off their roof with towels around, and I used to wear my Superman towel too, around my neck, but I didn't jump off a roof.
Well, I think that upset him.
It seemed like he was coming from the side also of just not liking that kind of thing anyway.
Maybe.
But which some people really don't. But so there was that little side. It'd be about the only thing at all that wasn't like him being a total saint, which I totally believe. One of my
favorite things in the documentary was when he was fighting to keep PBS on the air.
It was like in Congress or somewhere. I don't know. Some kind of hearing.
There was a hearing, and they had all these people from PBS saying their statements to this judge, and this judge was not having any of it.
He was being kind of an ass.
He was being a jerk. And he even said because all these people that went before Mr. Rogers, they had prepared statements, and they were reading from the statements, and the guy was just like, I don't want to hear any more statements read. Don't read them anymore.
Just tell me.
So Mr. Rogers was next. Fred was next, and he went on there, and his wife said in the interview that he was so nervous.
He had his statement. He was going to read.
And he was like, look, I prepared, and Fred was like, look, I prepared this, but, I'm not going to say it. And the guy started trying to be a jerk to him. But Mr. Rogers just kind of like blew it over and was just like, no, it's okay. I'll just explain it to you, very calmly, like almost like he was addressing a child.
That's how he did it pretty much. And yet he wasn't really dumbing it down. He was just
no. I mean like
as the straightforward way that he talks to kids.
Like he doesn't. He even like one of his other people who worked with him said that even if a kid was being off the wall and crazy and being a horrible brat of a kid, he would still talk to them calmly, and like that would bring them back down to a normal level. So he was speaking to this judge like this, and then he just told him everything that he loved about PBS and the good that he thought he needed to teach children and how. And the judge immediately said, "I love that."
It was amazing.
It was just a great moment.
Okay,
and I hope I didn't spoil it for you.
You just got your funding,
Yeah.
You just got it. You just earned it. It was really neat. Yeah, and I loved the scene with you see this in the trailer, but the scene with the pool, where they're putting their feet in the pool and everything.
And I noticed that they had him do that like
he did it
young,
again later,
and then older when he was older. Yeah,
it was just so neat. It was just a beautiful movie. Yeah, and sad sometimes and everything, but yeah, you need if you like Mr. Rogers at all for any reason, have any memories of that, or wanted any kind of like deeper info, behind the scenes stuff. This movie has all that stuff, It's really fascinating too, and you find out a lot about him and his insecurities and all that stuff that he grew up with. He was a chubby little boy. He grew up like
and
that,
so a lot of people made fun of a lot of the kids made fun of him.
So he went through bullying and everything. Yeah, it was really, really.
So
neat.
he had a lot of insecurities, and basically he was trying to help other children not have these insecurities and to feel loved, and it was just really nice.
It was so good.
And he even started an adult show.
He tried to do a similar show for adults. It just didn't click, I guess, with the audience. But
it did a little bit. It
was still fascinating to
Yeah, it was really cool. I would have enjoyed
it might do better if it was on today. Who knows? But yeah, it was amazing.
It probably would do better today because now the kids
kids who grew up with him, of course,
so we're all nostalgic about it. But I mean, obviously, like we weren't alive in the 60s, so there are older generations who are into Mr. Rogers, so
Yeah, he is.
you
Maybe
would have
even
thought that they
at
would have
that
watched
time,
it.
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we're a very nostalgic age group.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
generation of nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they're trying to deny it sometimes, but yeah.
No, we totally are.
Yeah. You know, people can say we don't want any more nostalgic stuff, but
Oh, that's all I want.
they're still eating it up.
I mean, I obviously
Yeah.
want new stuff or like original stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. You know, if you've seen the trailer, the trailer is a really good idea of what the movie's
Yeah.
like, and if you're crying in that trailer, which that
Get ready.
trailer, the trailer alone, we were bawling every time
Yeah.
we saw that trailer, and yeah, the movie is just nonstop bawling. You're gonna be crying.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so good.
It was good. Go see it. It's amazing. And if you think you're going to be depressed during it, it's not a depressing
No.
cry. It's like a good...
Yeah, even
It's a
when
good outlet.
there are moments where they're talking about depressing stuff, but it picks up. It's always
If you're like
the
stressed
turnaround.
right now and you really need to get some, like, have a good cry, go see it. Like, I feel great right now. I don't feel bad. So
No, it's a feel good kind
It's a
of a
feel-good
thing.
cry,
I think. I
yeah.
don't think it's a
for sure.
yeah.
All right, guys.
Okay.
See you
Talk
next
to you guys
time.
later. We recommend it.
Bye.
Bye.